Appalachian Genealogy presents Insight Engine, the language of the hills.
The Appalachian frontier was an environment defined by extreme physical isolation. Early settlers built their communities separated from central governments by steep ridges and dense forests, relying on oral traditions to govern daily life. Yet the official records of these remote valleys were not kept in spoken word. They were formalized in ink by county administrative clerks. The resulting courthouse ledgers capture a collision of two distinct vocabularies. The rigid prose of English jurisprudence sits side by side with isolated phonetic mountain speech. To read the Appalachian record, a researcher must translate both English law and mountain dialect simultaneously. Treating these historical documents as modern text guarantees failure. Researchers who cannot parse these overlapping languages will miscalculate an ancestor's wealth, erase their legal land rights, and draw entirely false family structures. County clerks in the 18th and 19th centuries inherited their administrative templates directly from British common law. As this image of rigid legal volumes suggests, the clerks were trained to use a precise, inflexible lexicon. This system introduced strict legal mechanisms to the frontier. Concepts like primogeniture, the succession of land to the firstborn son, and the strict division between dying testate with a will versus intestate without one dictated how property transferred. But the clerks had to apply this formal framework to the spoken realities of Scots-Irish settlers. When a clerk recorded a witness testimony or a boundary call, they wrote exactly what they heard. They recorded language phonetically, capturing the precise accents, dropped syllables, and heavy rhythms of the regional settlers directly onto the administrative page. This phonetic recording produced highly localized surnames. To trace a family line, a genealogist must search for names as they sounded, hunting for Bar instead of Bear or Tolliver instead of Taliaferro, rather than relying on standardized modern spellings. Deciphering these documents requires a specialized translation matrix. The researcher must consciously separate the mechanics of formal legal procedure from the phonetic echo of human speech. We start with the left column of the matrix, the legal framework. These terms define property ownership and inheritance. Land ownership relied on strict definitions. Metes and bounds refers to the physical survey system relying on landmarks and angles. Fee simple denotes absolute ownership of the land. A warrant is the official government authorization to survey that land. Physical real estate was categorized precisely. A message refers specifically to a dwelling and its associated outbuildings, like the cabin shown here, rather than an empty parcel of land. The curtilage is the enclosed yard immediately surrounding it. A tenement is any property held by a tenant. Appurtenances denote the abstract rights and privileges legally attached to that land, such as a right-of-way or access to a waterway. Estate law used similarly exact classifications. A relict identifies a widow. If her husband died, the law guaranteed her a dower, a legally protected life estate in 1/3 of his land. Issue specifies biological descendants only. The law separated biological bloodlines from general heirs, adopted children, or stepchildren. The method of transferring wealth dictated the vocabulary. A bequest transfers personal, movable property. A devise transfers real estate. Chattels are those movable, physical items, livestock, tools, furniture. A codicil is a legal supplement added to a will to amend or alter those distributions. These legal terms served as precise mechanisms. They were engineered to securely lock in and transfer wealth across generations in an otherwise volatile frontier environment. The legal framework cluster also extends into civic duties and the daily minutes of the county court. An ordinary refers to a licensed tavern or inn. It was a regulated commercial enterprise, not a descriptor of something mundane. Financial and legal obligations were strictly logged. A recognizance is a legal pledge recorded by a magistrate, binding an individual to appear in court or keep the peace. A bond is a strict financial guarantee backing up a legal promise. An indenture is a binding labor contract. Courts frequently use them to document apprenticeships, trading years of labor for specialized training and room and board. Property could be lost or surrendered. Escheat means property reverting to the state when an owner dies without heirs. A quitclaim is the formal, voluntary release of a right or claim to a piece of property. Misreading terms obscures an ancestor's social standing. Translating correctly reveals wealthy business owners instead of ordinary citizens, and civic pledges instead of personal debt. The right column of our matrix is dialect and phonetics. Here, the actual spoken voices of the settlers seep into the official text. Boundary calls relied entirely on local topography. A surveyor might mark a corner in a holler, meaning a small deep valley, and draw a line following a branch, a fast-moving stream. Travel distances were documented as locals spoke them. Yander denotes a distant, visible geographic feature. A trace, or packhorse road, is a narrow trail meant only for livestock, while a big road designates a main wagon route. Land quality was defined by colloquialisms. Bottom, or bottomland, identifies highly prized, fertile, low-lying earth adjacent to rivers, essential for intensive crop yields. Personal estate inventories are direct transcriptions of daily life. Look at the large wooden box in this room. The appraiser wrote down chist. A small sack was recorded as a poke, and medicinal plants were a yarb patch. Witness testimonies preserve raw emotion and action. A witness stating they were afeard means they were afraid. Right smart indicates a large quantity or high degree, and a critter refers to livestock. Occasionally, a clerk recorded a haint, a ghost or spirit. It appears rarely in legal disputes, but it maps the deep superstitions running through the community's oral culture. The legal terms establish the rules of survival. The dialect terms document the physical reality and the material culture of daily life in the mountains. Applying 21st century definitions to a 19th century ledger creates invisible dead ends in a family tree. Take the tavern error. Assuming an ordinary means mundane behavior obscures a lucrative licensed business. Or consider the heir error. An estate left to issue goes exclusively to the biological bloodline. Including stepchildren here permanently breaks the accuracy of a lineage trace. The property error occurs constantly in tax lists. Noting an improvement on a parcel of land rarely meant a large manor house was built. Historically, it simply proved the owner had cleared a patch of timber to start farming. To verify historical text, researchers must stop using standard dictionaries. Cross-reference findings using archaic editions of Black's Law Dictionary and regional dialect archives to find the original intent. Applying modern semantics to an archive actively overwrites the historical facts with a modern fiction. Let's test the translation matrix against a recreated 1817 probate file of a man who died suddenly, recorded exactly as the clerk wrote it. The court records state that he died intestate, and the magistrate entered his nuncupative will into the minute book. Translating those two terms proves he died suddenly without written plans, forcing him to make a deathbed oral declaration of his wishes to witnesses. The record notes he left his message, his chattels, including a chist and one critter, to his relict. Applying our vocabulary lets us map what happened. The widow retained the physical dwelling, the household storage, and a single piece of livestock to sustain herself. Finally, the clerk wrote that his issue received the bottomland, bordered by the big road and the yander ridge. We know the land transferred exclusively to his biological children. The phonetic dialect gives us exact physical markers: fertile lowland, a main wagon route, and a visible ridge, allowing us to overlay this property directly onto a modern USGS map. By deciphering the common law and listening to the mountain dialect, a paragraph of gibberish resolves into a precise, geographically accurate snapshot of a family in crisis. The language of the hills serves as a literal map. The legal terminology reveals the structural framework of an ancestor's survival, while the dialect reveals the vibrant rhythms of their daily life. Return to your personal archives. Pull out the oldest deeds, court bonds, and estate packets in your files, and read them again from start to finish. Look closely for the rigid structure of the common law, and listen carefully for the phonetic dialect hiding in the margins. Learning this vocabulary provides the only path to reading an ancestor's life with clarity, ensuring the world they built is honored on its own terms.
Thanks for watching. Please remember to like, follow, and share. You can also visit us at appalachiangenealogy.com for more history and resources from the mountains.